this movie was having trouble getting distribution, and so she called an acquaintance of hers to help them get distribution, and that was Tom Cruise.
I knew it. I knew it was gonna be Tom Cruise. I was like, "Who's it gonna be? Tom Cruise?" I should have said it. Fuck.
So he apparently attended a
I knew it
screening
was
of.
gonna be Tom Cruise.
I
Finally,
watched.
I finally,
Watched. I
finally,
watched. I
finally,
watched.
I finally.
Watched.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And this is Alon, and I finally watched Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
So this month we are going to do four Guy Ritchie movies. This being his debut. We're doing them chronologically. And I was remembering back when I watched this. And so I watched this on DVD or Blu Ray, like way after it came out. I think when I was in like law school, college or law school. And I watched it after a night of like, I just didn't go to sleep the night before, not like partying or anything, just like never slept.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so my memory of it was definitely hazy, but I had seen it before. Um, and watching it this time, I feel very similarly to like Quentin Tarantino in that it's a really great first film, but by and large, I like almost everything after it more. Like after this, we're gonna do Snatch, and I think that's like a perfect comparison with like Lock, Stock, and Snatch to Reservoir Dogs and then Pulp Fiction. I think you'll like Snatch like a lot better too.
Like where he has like an idea or like his
No,
skill set.
yeah, it
What?
just it gets better. It's just like it's like a much smaller. It's like a much smaller scale movie.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Why did you say
You
no?
you started saying he has an idea.
No, I was saying an idea of his, and I was trying to find the word like aesthetic, and then kind of like um polished it up a bit for the second one.
Well, he's given a lot more like money to do it, and yeah, he's just got kind of the notoriety. This movie, I don't know if you realize this. So this is Jason Statham's first movie.
Right.
Um, Vinnie Jones, who plays Big Chris, is a professional soccer player before this, who was like apparently did this movie while he was like banned from playing, is what I read. So like I think I read somewhere that like 17 out of the 40 something speaking parts were from people who had never acted before, right?
That
And
that's
then
that's interesting. Yeah, because now like Jason Statham is a well known actor, but so is the ex soccer player. Seen him in
Vinny,
a bunch
yeah,
of
Vinny.
stuff.
Um, and like in the next movie in Snatch, he gets Brad Pitt, right? So it's like kind of a very similar thing. Although Quentin with Reservoir Dogs, I mean, I guess I don't remember like if those were all bigger names. They were definitely like known actors then, but it's just I don't know. It's very similar. I really enjoyed watching this time. It's an interesting movie to talk about because like I think the plot is so linear in that like you can kind of see everything being telegraphed to set up the end.
Yep,
Um,
definitely.
but it's also just like a very fun movie to watch with like the kind of the banter and the like the British slang throughout. Um, Alon, what did you think?
S- So I went in it, and I was I'm looking after my niece this week, so having like not a lot of time to myself watching movies. I know what it's like with you having kids.
Your hair
Um,
looks very disheveled today. I was like, oh man, it's really parenthood's really hitting him this week.
I just got out of the pool. Okay, you can cut me some slack. No, but so I haven't had much time to myself. And the first couple nights we had her, we put her down super late. So I was kind of trying to fit it in before bed. Started it at 11, and it got maybe like 30, 40 minutes in, and basically I was like, "Ugh, I gotta watch this another time." And then when I rewatched it, um, I just restarted the movie instead of starting it from the 40-minute point, right? And so I just restarted the movie, and I'm glad I did because there were so many things that I missed, like, half paying attention to it. But like you said, it's this huge buildup at the end, but they start laying down the pieces in the very beginning. So, yeah, if you like really pay attention to the movie from the get go, you see that they're setting up stuff that's gonna play out, you know, uh, an hour later, which I think is really cool. And yeah, I mean, we were talking about how many Guy Ritchie films I watched before this, and it's not many.
Yeah, you said Aladdin, and then you think you've seen all of Man from Uncle, but you're not sure.
No, I've definitely seen Man from Uncle, and Aladdin.
I don't
Uh,
know. You when we talked about it on this pod. So anyone who listened to that part of it, you're like, I kind of remember, unless we cut that out. But I remember there was a car chase and there was a wall, and
well, it's because it was just so long ago. I saw it in theaters when it first came out. I don't know what's that, 2011?
I don't remember.
No, that one must have been like 2017 or something.
It came out in 2015.
So close. Um, yeah. So what's this? 7 years, 8 years ago. So whatever. But yeah, I think those are the only two. Even though I've heard of him and a lot of his films, I just haven't really sat down and watched them. Which I'm kind
Well,
of
it's funny because
doing
I
that
don't
now.
think Aladdin is not like it's not really what you go to when you're trying to watch a Guy Ritchie film. I think Man from Uncle is also fairly different. It's kind of a James Bond. So for this month, we're doing Lock Stock, we're doing Snatch, we're doing Rock and Rolla, which is one of my favorite, and probably like that almost might have been my entry point into Guy Ritchie movies was Rock and Rolla. And then we're doing his latest one, or it was his latest one up until like just a little while ago because he just had two come out: Ruse de Guerre, something Fortune, and then the Covenant that just came out. So um, I'm excited to do all of those. I think let's just start from the top of this. And you were saying that the first time you watched this, you watched like 30 minutes, but I thought you told me that you're like, oh yeah, I started last night, but I didn't get very far. And I was like, well, where'd you get to? And you're like, where they were throwing all the jewelry as they're running down the stairs. And I was like, that's 3 minutes into the movie, like max.
um, I think okay. So here's the actual timeline of the thing, right? Um, the first night I attempted to watch it, it was like literally 2 minutes into it. Then when I went to go watch it again, I got 30 minutes into it and then restarted it from that point. I watched it with Taylor actually when I restarted it. And then we got halfway through that movie and then the next night we finished the movie. So,
Nice.
yeah, that was like four separate watches. Two
That's like me.
attempts.
Now you get it though, right? Like as a parent for this week, you get
No,
the
I don't. No, 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 no. I don't because uh, the initial one, yes, sure, but I would have just watched it all the way through, but Taylor's the one who wanted to, like, finish it halfway because she was sleepy. I don't get you guys being sleepy and shit, but whatever.
probably I would imagine because she's the one primarily taking care of your niece right now as you get to sleep in.
Oh, I wish that was true, but who gets up 3 times in the middle of the night to take her pee so I don't have to wash the sheets in the morning? This guy.
So the movie opens with just this little scene of them selling kind of fake goods on the street, and you have Eddie being the guy who like pretends to not know him. Is like, oh, that's a great deal on like necklaces or whatever. I love like the kind of the lines from Jason Statham, but one of my favorites that I caught. So I started this movie and I watched like 30 minutes of it. And then I realized I was like, oh, wait, we're not recording for like 10 days. So then I just stopped and then I
Yeah.
started over like a couple days before we were recording. But when the second time when I started again, one of the lines that I really liked is he says to this one lady, don't stand there like 1 o'clock and half past, which like visually is just her kind of like bending over, like hawking at everything, like just looking at it, but like not buying. He's like, get in here and give me your money. And I love too like the voiceover, and I think this will pay off in the next film. But the guy that does the voiceover in this movie is the guy that works at Eddie's dad's bar,
Oh, okay.
and he is also the main antagonist bad guy in Snatch, from what I remember.
What's the name?
In this movie, he's named Alan or narrator. I don't think we hear his name, but he is Alan Ford, and he's going to be like as I just said, the main bad guy in Snatch, and he's really great in that.
So is Snatch a sequel to this?
No, it's just a Guy Ritchie type movie. So it's like a very similar setup. Like literally all four we're gonna do are gonna be very similar. But like the story's different, but kind of the world is all much very like this kind of UK underground. They
When
probably all take place in London.
when you first brought up that we're gonna do this, and you brought up this movie, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, I asked you if this was a sequel because I really thought there was a movie called Lock, Stock, and a Smoking Barrel. And then like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels was the sequel. But there is no such thing, such movie as Lock, Stock, and a Smoking Barrel. Um, and it's funny because have you ever heard of the movie The Whole Nine Yards?
Yeah,
There's a sequel to that movie called The Whole 10 Yards.
I do. Yes.
Okay, I thought that was kind of what they were doing here, but not at all, because there is no existing movie. So,
I also like how the guy kind of says the title of the movie. He's like lock, stock, the whole fucking thing, talking about Sting's bar. Which, by the way, Sting is in this and actually is like pretty great in his little part.
oh, Sting is the
Uh,
dad.
yeah,
See, now that you say that, I connect it, but I did not catch that.
that's
Um,
funny.
What's funny too is I was kind of thinking like, why is this called Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels? And then he says it like you said. He says Lock, Stock, and the whole fucking thing in the movie. I was like, well, where does the two smoking barrels come from? And I go, oh, the two antique guns are the two smoking barrels. I get it now.
Right. There's this other thing too that I just noticed today. I guess this is a thing that Guy Ritchie likes to do, but there's a show called Lock Stock, which is basically a TV series based off of this movie. Then there was a TV show that was done by Crackle called Snatch that starred Rupert Grint, who was Ron Weasley in Harry Potter.
Yep.
And now he's doing the Gentleman TV series, which is starring Theo James, which I'm actually super fucking excited for. Um, but just like he's willing to like sell off he's like, there's no like, oh, this is sacred ground that can't be touched. He's like, no, yeah, you can make a TV show out of this. That's fine.
Oh, you're thinking that like Guy Ritchie sits on a higher plane where he's like not a sellout. He did Aladdin, dude, for Disney.
Yeah, Ashley was just talking today about how much she didn't like that movie. I thought it was fine, but like I think all those live actions like
But
aren't
it's kind
the
of a
best.
gimmick. It's kind of a gimmick from Guy Ritchie doing that like fast slow motion speed up thing, right? But
Yeah,
it wasn't really introduced in his beginning work. So when did that become like, oh, that's a Guy Ritchie move?
I mean it'd probably be in Snatch. I haven't seen Snatch in years, but I would imagine that's where it's going to be. Snatch is really great. I can't wait to. We should get back to this movie, but Snatch is really great, mostly because of like Brad Pitt's performance is so amazing in it. Um, but so let's get back to it. The main setup of this movie is these four guys are getting money together so that their friend Eddie, who is just amazing at cards, can get in a card game with a guy named Hatchet Harry. Just like as a FYI, like don't play poker against a guy named Hatchet Harry, which is really funny because they talk about how he beat a guy to death with a black dildo later on in the movie.
Right.
And then at the very end, when they go into his office, it says like Harry, whatever, the porn king.
Yeah.
And I like didn't catch that throughout. They're like, oh, that's what this guy does because they never
He
like.
he runs a sex shop.
I guess yeah, that part of it. I like
Harry's
I
sex
s-
shop.
there's so many small details though, but I like how it's like driven home at the very end, right? Like that is, you know what I mean? Like it's not integral to the plot, but I liked seeing it at the end because they definitely honed in on it on the door so you could see it.
The end is my favorite part of the movie, and I can't wait till we get there because I really want to break down exactly. And it man, it's so good.
I think
Um,
from the point all of them are going to the four guys flat, like
well,
the
yeah, because
Rory and
yeah,
Big Chris and Dog and his group are already there. I think from that point on is like the best part of the movie to me.
well, because the weed growers know what the people who rob them look like, and it just so
Mhm.
happens to be kind of like the same
Yeah, yeah, I know you wanna break
five
it
white
down.
guys. It, it's so great. Anyways, so yeah, so as you were explaining, they're getting together 25, there's four of them. They're getting together 25 grand each so that their friend Eddie, who's amazing at poker, can beat Hatchet Harry in poker and win a bunch of money. I think they're looking for like $20,000.
25 apiece.
20 no, 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 it's 25 a piece, but it's 20,000 gain back, right? So they're gonna each get their 25 back plus another 20 grand on top of that. So they're looking for a 20 grand return each. And Eddie is pretty confident he can get it, but this all this setup to oh, I was talking to you about like this thing that they established in the beginning and where does it pay off in the end? The man on fire running out of the bar, how that like plays in
Oh,
the
that's right,
ending.
yeah.
I thought that was great.
Yeah, when he explains yeah, when they explain what he did to that one guy, that is yeah, that's actually really funny, and yeah, this movie definitely I didn't have time to do it, but would definitely reward, like, a second watch. Um, I also so right before we go to the poker game, a bunch of more establishing stuff, we go to kind of the shitty apartment that Bacon and Eddie live in, Jason Statham and, Nick Moran, and they're like, "Oh, we have these neighbors that we can always hear," and they're like I guess just thieves. It looks like they have this reputable shop or whatever, but they just steal shit from people. Like I couldn't even figure out. I guess they're loan sharks, maybe. I don't know what
It,
Dog actually does for his legitimate part of his business, if there is such a thing.
it's kind of funny, right? Because they live on like one side of the flat, and Dog and his crew live on the other side of the flat, and there's like a cab service that's in the middle.
No, it's not. I think it might be on the other side because the dog actually like throws the plank guy through the wall, and he's able to see all the cash that got stolen. Because at the beginning, Jason Statham opens. You're right though. Like basically, this was like a flat that was divided in two because Jason Statham opens this door, and then
Yeah,
there's just a brick wall that was built, and I was like, why does that make sense? But it's like, oh, because it was kind of cut in half.
yeah, exactly,
Um,
exactly.
and then we get the weed growers, which like have a cage at their front door that never they don't ever use, which is it's funny. It's very telegraphed, but then the way it's used when it actually gets to it is very smart. Like for the first time when they're about to get robbed, they've locked it. Like that's just smart to me.
Oh, what's the guy? What's the guy who's like friends? The connection between Dog and the weed guys.
Plank.
Plank. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like Plank realizes that they never locked the cage, and that's when he tells his boss. I assume it's his boss, right?
Yep.
Uh, they never lock the cage, so it's super easy. So it's kind of funny because when Bacon and his crew are listening in on that conversation, I was kind of confused because I was like, well, why doesn't Bacon and his crew just rob the weed dealers?
I don't think they know where it is.
And that's the reason. Because I was like, they're making it seem like robbing the weed guys is super easy, and then waiting for them to rob the weed guys and then robbing them is like the difficult part. But then you're right, they're the only ones who knows where the location of the weed is.
Right. Um, and then we meet Vinnie Jones, whose name is Chris. There's a couple of cool facts about this from Vinnie Jones. So once I already said this was his first movie. But what I read is on the first day of filming, he had just been released from police custody for beating up his neighbor, allegedly. I don't know, allegedly. Could have been he could have been convicted. I don't know. And then he said that he was cast because in the script, the big Chris was described as looking like the English footballer Vinnie Jones. So like Guy Ritchie had like a Vinnie Jones type in mind, and Vinnie Jones was like, oh, I got some time.
That's hilarious. It's like, I'm imagining my character looking like this famous person, and then the person walks in, and you're like, shit, you're hired. I don't even care.
What's amazing too is he is actually a real like so I think maybe one of his more famous roles now would be like Euro Trip, right? And he's just like kind of an over the top character in that.
Right.
Um, but he's actually like really great in this movie. Like his acting is really great in this. It's kind of very subtle for most parts.
Yeah, I mean, I it's when you said he's an ex-football player, it surprised me to hear that because I do think he's a pretty good actor.
Yeah. I also remember him. One of the first things I saw him in too, which we've already done, was Gone in 60 Seconds, where he plays the guy that doesn't speak for most of the movie, and then he's like super eloquent at the very end.
Yes, 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 yes. I'm trying to remember where I like seen him recently, and it's two things that I remember him distinctly from. I watched a review of the Midnight Meat Train, and he's the main character in. Well, he's the I don't know if you call it main character. He's the antagonist of the Midnight Meat Train.
Uh huh.
But where I've seen him first is in X-Men Last Stand. He's the Juggernaut, baby.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. I probably saw him in that first too. Um, so after this, we get to the poker game. We've like introduced to Sting. We're introduced to Barry the Baptist, who like hires these basically two fucking idiots to steal these shotguns that his boss wants, which is like that's a mistake. Why are you hiring
It
those guys?
that might be my favorite plot line.
Just hiring like the worst two possible people for this job.
You know, they remind me of the Cruella de Vil henchmen.
I would imagine that would like not surprise me if that was written in the script of like who we're looking for this.
The two, like, what's his? What are they? Horace and
Jasper.
Jasper. Yeah.
I never learned the idiots in this movie. I never learned their names like throughout. Like I still am trying to find them in here in IMDb, and I was like, I don't know. Gary and Serge, maybe? I don't know. I
Oh,
know
it
one
is
of them is
Gary.
Gary.
One of them is
I
Gary.
know
He's
one of
like,
them's
look
Gary,
what
and
they've done to my poor Gary. I thought he fucking died, dude, when the shotgun blast cut his
yeah,
head. Yeah.
it was a pretty funny. Well, it's also like foreshadowing because he then does get shotgun blasted, like at the end.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh no, he gets hatcheted. The
Oh
other
yeah,
guy
in the
gets
back.
shotgunned.
Hmm.
A lot of death. I thought too that they were gonna like kind of. I thought Harry didn't die because they don't show him die. They show him like they showed the dude shooting at him,
Right.
but they don't actually show him
You
dead.
thought
And
it was
then
literally gonna be like Pulp Fiction, where it's like all the shots and then they just all miss.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
if you're gonna steal, steal well. Um, so we go to the poker game, and also at this time, like the other guys are at Samoa Joe's, and they run into Rory, and like ask him to turn off the TV, and he just turns and looks at him. He's like, "No." Um, the card game, I once again have some like math questions about this because it looks like Eddie is winning quite a bit, and if he started with 100,000, it looks like he's winning quite a few hands.
Yeah.
So let's just say he's up to like 150, and then he has to get loaned like the other 100. So that's the 250 that he has to match. But
Right.
then maybe I guess I don't know. Harry might have said like, "Oh no, it's 500,000." I don't know. It's weird. But all in all, Harry has just now decided that you owe him $500,000. So I guess it's like you can't even question the math because it's just like this dude will kill you if you don't give him $500,000.
What's Hatchet Harry's muscle's name?
Barry the Baptist.
Barry the Baptist. Such a great character. Such a great voice. Like everything about that dude, I love it.
So he was actually a bare knuckle boxer before he got into acting. And this film, I don't know if you saw it, is actually dedicated to him. He died before it premiered of lung cancer. So he was sick the whole time he was shooting
Oh
this.
my god. Yeah, I
And this
saw
was
it
like,
was dedicated to someone. I didn't make the connection it was him though.
yeah, so it's very sad. But he's so fucking good in that
Yeah.
role. It's like once again, like the guys at the end of the firm were perfect as mafia guys. He's fucking like perfect for this Barry the Baptist role.
So it was funny because Taylor had a problem with how the cheating was being done. And
Uh-huh.
I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Well, how is if they have like a camera behind Eddie the entire time, um, how is Eddie winning anything at this point, right? Well, like, why isn't he constantly losing?" And I go, "I don't know. I guess you're right. I like, why is it? It comes up." And she's like, "Oh, I get it. It's because the Baptist is on the phone with the two idiots trying to like
Yep.
solve their issues or whatever." Um, and during that time, Eddie's winning a bunch of hands.
Well, and then also at one point you see Barry the Baptist like hitting the thing, trying to get it to work again, and then he gets it to work and he sees. I mean, it's also just horrible card discipline from Eddie to have it like out like that. You got to bring it in tight, so only you can see it, to the chest. So he's just a little too nonchalant. Um, I love like right after this. So basically, Eddie just goes and gets drunk for 2 days. So now we're down to 5 days. But the cook, who I guess his name is Soap in this, is like, let's just refuse to pay. And Jason Statham is like, do you not know who Harry the Hatchet is? And then tells a story about how he beat a guy to death with a 15-inch black dildo.
While this is happening, hold on. While this is happening, it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Is they're at a bar where they're telling the story, and they all order drinks, and they bring them like these fruity pineapple
Yep.
cocktails, and Jason Statham's like, "What the fuck is this?" And the bartender's like, "It's a cocktail like you asked for." He's like, he's like, "You can fall in love with an orangutan in this thing." It's like all this like pineapple topping and stuff like that. And he's like, I want a cocktail." He's like, "That is a cocktail." He's like, "I thought this was a bar." He's like, "It's a Samoan bar." It's like, "Well, I just want a beer." He's like, "We don't serve beer." And he's like, "I thought this was a bar." He goes, "It is. It's a Samoan bar." I don't know. That whole thing is just so funny to me.
I think you could do that about like fucking everything. Like the one of my favorite bits is when Tom and Nick the Greek are like haggling over the stereo, and he's like $100 is $100, and Tom is like, yeah, except it's not when it's $200. And one thing I didn't notice is he's like, well, what else do I get? And he
The
hands him
phone.
the shitty red phone,
Yeah.
and then he's using it later.
The whole time, throughout the entire rest of the movie, he's
Just
using that
shows like what
phone.
a cheap piece of shit he is.
Yeah.
Um, so then also at this time we get the loan sharks are hitting golf balls at this guy. Then Plank goes to the weed guys, and this part is like where I think it's a little too telegraphed, but I mean it happens next, so it's not like that big a deal. But Plank like knocks over a bunch of money, and they're like, "Oh, why are Plank has seen all of our money." It's like just so obvious what's going to happen next because there was a scene earlier where Dog is like, Plank's like, "Why am I only getting this much?" And Dog is like, "When you come up with the hits, then you'll get paid more." So it's just like all if I had like one complaint about this movie is it's too telegraphed and like what's gonna happen. It's too like easy to follow.
I'll tell you why that's not a problem for me. Their accents make it so fucking hard to understand that I'm glad it is like
Uh,
literally laid out in this black and white thing, because if it wasn't and I had to get over their accents, I would be totally lost, man.
I also love the dildo idea from Tom about like we have the check paid to one company and then we offer them a refund from this other company that's like a very long offensive name, and it's like, and who's gonna cash that at their bank so their bank knows that this is what they're into. Which apparently that idea was like stolen from a book or something, but it's fucking great.
Except how great that idea is, it would not work today because everything is done online and you can get like anonymously refunded online.
Well, this was 98. Didn't work that way.
Yeah, I know.
Um, so then we find out that the idiots sold the guns to Nick, who sold the guns to Tom. Um, I like when Vinnie Jones goes to Sting. It's a great scene where he's like, your boy fucked up, and Harry wants your bar. He's always wanted your bar. Um, and Sting's like, well, I know how you feel about cursing, so I'll just say this: tell Harry to go fuck himself. Which we didn't even talk about the sons with Vinnie Jones and his son in the beginning with the guy who they're getting money from. Is That's so great. Yeah,
Little
little
Chris
Chris is
in the Tanner.
yeah,
Yeah.
so good. And Vinnie Jones like, I'm gonna take that as shock and I'll give you another chance. I love that Sting is just like, I thought, oh, he's gonna feel like he's gonna lose his bar, and Sting's like, I'm never giving up my bar. Like fuck my son. That's his debt. I'm like, it doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
And then Soap bringing the knives are so fucking funny. He's like, "Why didn't you bring any big knives?" And then he pulls out like a machete, basically.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I think knives are a good idea. Big fuck off shiny ones is also like a great line from him.
So back to the plot kind of. So we're getting down to the part where they lost all the money from the poker game, and they're all thinking, where are we going to get $500,000, right? Because if they're like every day that they're late on the money, a finger of theirs is going to get cut off by the
Mhm.
Baptist, um, at the request of Hatchet Harry. So we get to the point where they overhear Dog and his crew, and they're like, Eddie's like, I know how to do this. So this starting at this point, this is where all the layers are coming together, right? Because at this point, the two dumb henchmen have stolen the guns. Okay, I have to say another great line is when the Baptist is hiring them. They're like, "What's in it for us?" And he's like, "It's an old fucking house. It's an estate. You have antiques." It's like, "What are we gonna do with fucking antiques?" Um. Anyway, so and he's like bad. The Baptist is walking away, and he's like, "Oh, those northern idiots," and then and then they're like, "That's southern," whatever. I just love all the dialogue in this movie. Sorry.
I love when the guys are going to steal the guns and he's like, "Hey, you got to put a mask on." He's like, "I just got my hair done. You're fucking an idiot if you think that I'm going to put a stocking over this." And
He
then he
just
gets it
puts it on
shot
his
off.
nose.
Yeah, it looks like yeah, it looks like I don't even know.
Like a
So, yeah,
thong.
I'm kind of ready to talk to the robbery about the robbery. Like so they go in and for the first time the cage is locked
Yeah.
and then Plank pulls out the gun on this guy and he just immediately faints. And I love too that they shoot off they're like threaten to shoot off his foot. They do it, and you don't even get to see it until later on when other people come and his foot's just like fucking missing almost.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they're like the rest of the weed guys are hiding up in the rafters,
With an
and they're
airsoft gun, basically.
yeah, like a BB gun, like a high powered BB gun, and it's just shooting them in the neck. Although I have to say, growing up, a lot of my buddies around the neighborhood had BB guns,
Yeah.
uh, like with the not plastic, but like the metal
Oh, the metal
bullets.
ones?
Yeah, and like my biggest fear is getting shot in the eye or shot in the neck, and just fucking bleeding out or losing an eye. But yeah, Plank was shot in the neck and he's just continuously bleeding. And
You just have an artery, like, shot in your neck, and you're just having to hold it.
I already have one missing, man. I can't afford them hitting the other one. No, but so yeah, and so they're being shot, like they're being mildly inconvenienced by this BB gun shot in the neck, shot in the arm. He's like, "Oh, that stings." And then what I love is there's this running joke that what's his name? Willie, the tall lanky one.
Right, yeah, I
Harry.
don't know.
I think it's Harry. He brings a girl in that's like half conscious, and no one really pays her any mind because she's so quiet and she blends in with the furniture.
Right. I think it's Willie.
Willie, yeah. And so there's this moment where they're threatening that they're going to shoot his foot off unless they not only, hey, listen, come down, open the cage, let us in, but also how many people do you have and you better not lie to us. He's like, it's only the three of us. And then you find out that the girl is up there and the girl basically kills them all. But I'm thinking, wow, they risked it by lying about her. But then it occurred to me, it's like they even forgot that she was there.
She was the 5th person. They lied about, Willie, I think, because they
Oh,
had
he was. That's
they had
right.
already lied to Plank when Plank came because Willie was the one that let him in. Willie or Winston, who the fuck cares? I think it's Willie. No, yeah, Winston's the main drug guy. But they had already lied that Willie wasn't there because he was kind of Plank's connection to get in, and they didn't want Plank to get in. So Plank was like, "Yeah, yeah, he's not here." My favorite line from all this too is like they're getting shot with the airsoft guns, and Dog is like, "Would you all quit getting shot?"
um, and then they bring out the real big fucking gun.
Yeah, which is a nice like she just starts shooting everything. I like that. I mean, obviously, I like that instead of like killing her afterwards, he just kind of punches her and knocks her out. Is like it's like he has to do something to her, but he was like kind of nice about it as nice as he could because she just killed one of his dudes. But the traffic warden that shows up is I don't know if you recognize. Have you seen the movie The Trip?
No.
So it's Rob Brydon plays the traffic cop, which I did not recognize him the first time I watched it because I had not seen The Trip. I mean, he's obviously I think fairly famous over there, but that's what I know him from. Um, and then our four main guys steal this money back, and as it happens, I was like, oh, that was fairly easy. And I didn't remember much from this movie, so it was kind of almost the first watch for me again. It was like that was too easy. And it's funny is things kind of keep coming up for the rest of the movie, but it all feels too easy like the whole time. You know what I mean? It's like everything sort of works out after the poker game for the
Yeah,
most
yeah, yeah.
part.
No, no, it's like convenient, right? It's
Yeah.
like, okay, so we're gonna steal there, there, and there, and it's like it just so happens that Dogsman comes in at the same time that all of who's they're stealing weed from a guy, but then selling it back to him. What's his name?
Rory
Rory,
Breaker.
right? So Rory's guys go all in at the same time Dogsman goes all in, and they mistaken each other for the oppose, for our four main guys. And so there's just a giant shootout and everyone dies. And like that part is really convenient for our main characters.
Well, I think one thing that the movie does good that I didn't catch on to is so the drug guys are talking about how they have a backer, but they don't really mention who it is. And then Nick has started talking to Rory about giving him a sample, and they've talked about a price. And then uh when he brings Rory the sample, Rory's like, take it to the chemist. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's like that's when everything sort of comes together. So they realize they've been robbed, and you see the one guy with his foot just shot off, like sitting on the ground. Um,
As soon as Rory says take it to the chemist, Taylor and I look at each other and she goes, I wonder who they are.
I bet you saw that from the beginning, did she?
Uh
Um, so then after that, you have our main guys that are just getting drunk at a bar the whole time as like all of this shit is happening. Nick the Greek is like leaving town. Rory, like Dog has already discovered like the money of their next door neighbors. It's funny, like all these lines where he's like, they're
oh,
looking for it.
don't even get me started about how the two idiot. Wait, so they never delivered the shotguns to Harry? They sold them to Nick?
They sold
I
them to
I
Nick, who
missed that
sold them
part.
to Tom. Yeah. Well, yeah, they sold them to Nick, who sold them to Tom.
But why didn't they give them to Harry? Because they were hired to give them to Harry.
They didn't know. They said all. Barry gave them the instructions of all the guns in the cabinet, so they gave all the guns in the cabinet to Harry. The other rifles were being held by the guy that shot at them, the old guy, like the butler guy.
Oh,
So there's really bad instructions on Barry the Baptist's part, honestly.
seriously.
Um,
Yeah, so those two guns had to have been bought back. And it's like 700 quid or pounds or whatever they deal with. Um uh for the both of them, right? So it's like 350 each, and then you find out later they're worth like $200,000.
yep. I like the lines too, like Roy to Nick the Greek. He's like, "Your stupidity might be your saving grace, because I know if you knew this was my stuff, like you wouldn't have done this." Um, the scene before where Nick the Greek breaks the table with his glass
Yeah.
was just an accident that they kept in the movie, so it wasn't intentional, which I
But
think
the
is very
second
funny.
part where he puts it down again and there's no glass. It's
um, I also like that it's kind of almost a little too cute, but he's like, "You guys couldn't." Dog is talking to all his people, and they haven't been able to find him yet. And he's like, "You couldn't find him if they're the next door fucking neighbors." And like earlier, Eddie had said, "Oh, next door, we're the next door neighbors. It's the last place to look." And so then he throws Plank through a wall, and Plank sees it, and then that kind of sets up basically the ending, right? Dog is at the guy's place. They're at a bar. Rory is heading over with his men. Um, and I like the shootout's very funny. So basically, everyone's dead, and Rory once again has come out unscathed, and the chemist is there too. And then Rory turns Plank over, and they kill each other, and then the chemist runs out. But I love the dog stuff with Harry and Vinnie Jones. So Vinnie Jones headbutts him and takes the guns and the money,
yeah.
and then the guys show up with no one else there, and they're like, shit, our money's gone. So they're like freaking out. But then Vinny takes it to Harry and is like, yep, this is the money they would have given you. And he's like, oh, so well, then why'd you take it? And he's like, you can never be too careful. So it's like The guys don't realize it, but their debt has been paid off because
Right.
of the way Vinnie Jones has told Harry
Yeah.
that, like, yeah, this is the money they were going to give you. It's all there. Like, their debt is paid.
The only, and I love all this. The only part of that whole thing that I had a problem with is dog throwing plank through the
Yeah, yeah.
plaster
Too
thing.
convenient.
Too
Very
convenient.
convenient.
I wish there was some other little like dodgy way that happened, but whatever. Um, and then the guys roll up.
Well, so yeah, so well, Harry, Eddie, and the guys call Harry, and Harry's like, "Yeah, you've been paid, but I want to know where the fuck you got these rifles." And so they're heading over, but then the idiots go to rob Harry of the guns that they're supposed to give to Harry, which is
Yeah.
just a like that's
Because
a hilarious way for that
they're
to end.
following Vinny, they're following Big Chris because they
Yeah.
know that he has the guns, but they don't know that they're working for the same guys that they're working with. So they're just wanting to steal back from the guy that they're hired to. Oh fuck, dude.
So then they go in and they basically everyone dies from that. And Vinny goes back to his car and dog is holding a knife to little Chris's throat, right?
Mhm.
Um and so it's funny. So the guys have gone in, Eddie comes back out with 500,000. He's just like, I think we're in the clear as like Vinny Jones's car hits the back. And I read that Guy Ritchie told Vinny Jones to like just go as crazy as you want with this scene. And like apparently like the cameramen were all kind of like fucking scared about it. Cause for the most part, he doesn't do stuff like this in the movie. He's very like calm and reserved. But when you watch that scene, if it comes out of nowhere, you're like, holy fuck, this guy's crazy.
I thought it was awesome. I
It
loved it.
is.
And then I thought if we saw the body, like we saw the head, how brutal that would look. And I'm
It
glad we
wouldn't
didn't.
even there would be no head.
No, there's actually a really similar scene. I know you don't watch the Netflix Marvel shows, but there's a similar scene in Daredevil where Kingpin loses it and he smashes a guy's head in with the car door, and you see it actually. And yeah, you're right. After that, there is no head.
So Vinny goes back in after finding the money. I like how he goes to check if Eddie's all right, and then he sees the money. He's like, "Oh, you cheeky bastards!" And then like, although he probably doesn't say bastards because he doesn't swear, but he goes inside and sees Tom there with the guns, and they kind of just look at each other, and like Vinny's about to pull out like a knife, I think, to throw at him, or maybe a weapon, I don't know. And they basically just have an understanding of like, all right, you have the money, I'll have the guns. Um, and then they sort of go their separate ways. One cool thing I read when Vinnie Jones takes the money and the guns to Harry, Harry's holding the guns and he's like, "Oh, do you want to hold it?" to Vinnie Jones. And he's like, "Ah, better not." And apparently the reason that's in there is because Harry wants Vinnie Jones' fingerprints on the gun so that maybe eventually he can kind of like, if they don't need him anymore, can like kind of get him hit for a crime. You know what I mean? Like they can use
Right,
the guns in some way and like they'd be
right.
tied back to him. I don't know if that's like just someone's like fan theory or what, but it's kind of interesting. It sort of makes sense.
Hmm.
Um, and then I love the ending about this. It's kind of convenient just to have like this funny ending, right? So they tell Tom, "Hey, throw away the guns. Those are the only things that tie us to it." And then Vinny Jones comes in. He's like, "Hey, I wanted to take this back because it's yours, but I'm out of a job, so I took some of it for me and my son to set us up." And then he's got like a new car outside. But when you open the bag, there's nothing in it, right? And I guess maybe that what he is giving him is like, hey, those guns are worth a lot of money. You probably don't
Right,
know that.
right.
Um, and then like they start trying to call Tom as he throws the guns and like he misses the water and like I don't know,
He
it's pretty
puts the
funny.
phone in his mouth because he can't hold it and the lamppost as he's trying to knock the
Hmm.
guns into the water, and then he's receiving the call, and it's the perfect like freeze frame ending. Yeah, it's awesome. No, I walked away from this movie feeling really good about everything that happened. Like I feel like everyone, there's a moment where Rory goes in to like check the massacre that happened between his men and Dog's men. And there's this great thing where I think his plank is still alive, and he has a gun um, pulled up already on Rory, and Rory already has the gun pulled on him. And all you hear is the two simultaneous shots going off, and they're just both dead. And it's just like everything takes care of itself. And I think what as dog is leaving, right? Or
Right.
as who's carrying the bag?
Um, Dog's carrying the bag, but then Winston, the drug guy, is carrying another bag out too, I think, like some of the
Okay,
drugs.
so it's Winston then. Yeah, so
And he
Winston.
just got away scot free.
I guess he did, didn't he?
But now he doesn't have like a main guy. He's just like the chemist, so he doesn't have the guy that sells it. So he's got to find someone new to work with.
But yeah, I feel like it was a good ending because it was like Eddie. I guess you would call Eddie our main character out of all the four guys. But um, Eddie doesn't die, and basically he doesn't get anything with it. But he's still alive at the end, which is really all you can ask.
So in
All you can
yeah,
ask for.
so in the end, they either basically just lost their initial $25,000 investment, which would suck, or they made what would be so if they made 150 divided by 4, that's like 25, 37.5 or something like that a piece
Where are you getting
off of their
150 off the
the,
guns?
yeah, they thought they were 250,000 for the two guns.
So it's said between 200 and 300. They were appraised between 200 and 300,000, but it didn't make it obvious to me if it was each or for both guns.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was for both, but it doesn't matter. But anyway, yeah, either they kind of lost a little bit, which sucks, or they made a little bit. They made basically the profit they thought they would have made off the poker game originally if they get the guns. So it's almost like a wash. Like nothing happened. It's like either they lost or everything worked out like the way they thought it would in the end. One final thing I want to say before we go is I read this story, which is pretty cool. So one of the executive producers, Trudy Styler, she like this movie was having trouble getting distribution, and so she called an acquaintance of hers to help them get distribution, and that was Tom Cruise.
I knew it. I knew it was gonna be Tom Cruise. I was like, "Who's it gonna be? Tom Cruise?" I should have said it. Fuck.
So he apparently attended a
I knew it
screening
was
of
gonna be Tom Cruise. God
so
damn
he
it.
as the story goes, he attended a screening of the movie, and he like walks in there with a bunch of other executives, and when they see Tom Cruise walk in, they're like, "Oh, what the fuck?" And then they play the movie, and after the movie ends, he apparently stands up and says, "This is the best movie I've seen in years. You guys would be fools not to buy it." And when I read that exact quote, I was like, I can see Tom Cruise saying fools. Like, you guys would be fools not to buy it. Like that part made it ring true to
In
me.
his Jerry Maguire impression.
So we owe Guy Ritchie owes his career, and we owe like all of these like London gangster movies to Tom Cruise. So thank you again, Tom Cruise.
Um,
Um,
as you know, we talked a lot about the plot, and we already kind of you and I talked about how great the dialogue is through this entire film, but we didn't want to spend too long picking out every line. I'm just gonna and I love the movie as a whole, but I'm just gonna leave my part to this. The funniest fucking thing in this movie is how much they rag on Fat Man. And
he's like the skinniest guy in the movie. They just keep calling.
what a what a complex they give this dude. And and from like walking to the grocery store and being like, "Oh my god, what have you eaten?" to like, "All right, me, Bacon, and Eddie are gonna go this way, and Fat Man, you go this." And then, and then he's just like, "Wait, who's Fat Man?" It's like I don't understand.
I agree. Yeah, that is like the commitment to that joke. Well, thanks for listening to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And this is Alon, and I finally watched Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.